I never believed in ghosts. Not really. Sure, I had heard the stories, things moving on their own, whispers in the dark, figures seen out of the corner of the eye, but I had always found a rational explanation. The wind. A shadow. My own paranoia. But now I don't know what to believe anymore. It started a week ago. I had just moved into my new apartment, a small but cozy space with wooden floors and an old-fashioned charm. The previous owner had left behind a few pieces of furniture, including a large, antique mirror that stood in the corner of my bedroom. I should have thrown it out. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe because it looked expensive. Maybe because it had a strange, eerie beauty to it, tall, with an intricate gold frame that seemed to belong in a castle rather than a cheap apartment. The first night, I noticed something strange. It was subtle. A shadow that shouldn't have been there. A flicker of movement in the mirror when I was perfectly still. I told myself it was nothing. Just my eyes playing tricks on me after a long day. The second night, it happened again. But this time, the shadow was clearer, human-shaped, standing at the far edge of the mirror. I turned around, my heart pounding, but there was nothing behind me. Only the empty room. My stomach knotted with unease, but I laughed it off. Maybe it was the way the light hit the glass, or maybe I was just exhausted. The third night, it moved closer. I remember freezing in bed, my breath hitching as I stared into the mirror. The figure was no longer at the edge, it had shifted. It was halfway across the reflection, still a shadow, still featureless, but undeniably there. It was watching me. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights on, my eyes fixed on the mirror, expecting the figure to disappear, to reveal itself as nothing more than a trick of the light. But it didn't. It just stood there. Unmoving. Silent. The fourth night was worse. I woke up in the middle of the night with a feeling of suffocation, like the air in my room had thickened. My skin prickled with an unshakable sense of being watched. I turned to the mirror, dreading what I would see. The shadow was clearer now. No longer just a blur. It had an outline, tall, thin, and wrong. Its body was elongated, its head slightly tilted, as if studying me. And the worst part? It had eyes. Not glowing. Not hollow. But deep, black pits that seemed endless. And they were locked onto mine. I bolted upright, my heart hammering in my chest. I grabbed the nearest object, a book, and hurled it at the mirror. It hit the glass with a dull thud and fell to the floor. The mirror didn't crack. The figure didn't move. I spent the rest of the night with my back pressed against the opposite wall, too scared to look, too terrified to close my eyes. The fifth night, I made a mistake. I gasped, stumbling back, my breathing ragged. The figure in the mirror, it grinned. A wide, unnatural grin, stretching too far across its face. My stomach churned, my limbs locking in terror. That night, I didn't dare sleep. I moved the mirror, turned it away, threw a blanket over it. But it didn't matter. When I woke up, because at some point, exhaustion had won, the mirror was back in its original place. The blanket was neatly folded at its base. And the figure, it was right behind me. Closer than ever. I ran. I grabbed my car keys, my phone, and I ran out of the apartment, gasping for air, my pulse pounding in my ears. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind racing, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. What was happening? Was I losing my mind? I didn't return until sunrise, telling myself the daylight would make everything normal again. But it didn't. When I stepped inside, the air was heavy, thick with something unseen. The mirror was still there. And the figure was pressed up against the glass, its hand-long, bony fingers resting against the surface as if trying to push through. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. My entire body was trembling. It was real. That night, I made up my mind. I had to get rid of it. I grabbed the mirror with shaking hands, my pulse roaring in my ears, and dragged it outside. My muscles strained, but I didn't stop until I reached the dumpster. I didn't care how much it was worth, I wanted it gone. With a deep breath, I lifted it, ready to throw it away. But as I looked at the glass one last time, my blood turned to ice. The figure wasn't in the mirror anymore. It was behind me. I dropped the mirror, stumbling backward as it shattered on the pavement. Jagged shards reflected my wide, terror-filled eyes. But there was nothing else. No shadow. No figure. Just me. I didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. Even now, as I write this, I don't know if it's truly gone. Because sometimes, in the corner of my eye, I still see it. Getting closer. Every night.